Okay, so in this video I will discuss about the types of fractions, and specifically we will be discussing about the types of fractions. That is, we'll discuss what do we mean by proper fractions, what do we mean by improper fractions and mixed fractions, and how do we represent the improper and the mixed fractions. So first let us begin our understanding of the proper fractions. In simple words, whatever fractions that we studied till now, they are all proper fractions. And why do we call it proper fractions? So for that, let us just try to recollect our discussion on fractions. So what is a fraction? It is nothing but a number, right, which represents a part of the whole. Right, and the whole is divided into some equal parts. So that is what is a fraction. Now what does it, so you also remember that a fraction is represented as a numerator and a denominator. So I'm just taking this fraction. Now this denominator, it gives the number of parts into which the whole is divided. So in this case 2 is the denominator, and numerator is a number of parts that have been taken out. So that is the numerator. I'm just writing the short form numerator. Now what if you just have a look at this closely, right? See, the maximum that we can take out from this 2 is actually all the 2 parts, right, or less than the 2 parts. So essentially what it means is that this fraction, the numerator, is always going to be lesser than the denominator, or at the most equal to the denominator, right? So what these fractions which we have studied are called as proper fractions. The main criteria is because the numerator, that is in this case 1, is always going to be less than the denominator. That is what is a proper fractions. And the most important property that you can observe about these proper fractions is that they lie between 0 and 1, and this you can recollect from our discussion on representing the fractions on the number line. And even if you just think intuitively, right, I can divide, let's say I have 1 of something which is a whole. 1 is like 1 unit of something. I can divide that into as many equal parts as is possible. It is possible to divide it into equal parts, right? And whatever parts I take out will be less than the whole, right? Therefore we can say that all proper fractions lie between 0 and 1. So just two quick things. First is that in the proper fraction, the numerator is always gonna be less than the denominator, and this fraction, the proper fraction, lies between 0 and 1. Having said that, let us try to understand the concept of an improper fraction. But before we do that, let's try to understand it using this scenario. So let us say that we have these 4 friends and they are having their lunch. After the lunch, they have this apples to eat. But now there is a unique problem here, right? The friends are 4, and if you see the apples, there are 5. So you have 4 friends and 5 apples, and everybody wants to divide these apples equally. How do you do that? So one of the friends proposed that all the apples can be divided into 4 equal parts, because there are 4 people. Each and every apple must be divided into 4 equal parts, and then take 1/4 from each apple. So this is how it will be looking. So this goes to the first person, this goes to the second person, this goes to the third person, and this goes to the fourth person. So now if I want to represent these parts here, how I am going to represent, right? What will be my numerator? So in numerator we just count the parts. So it is like 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 parts. So there will be this 5 parts, right? And now the thing is, why everybody is getting 5 parts? Because there are 5 apples, so everybody is getting 5/4 of each apple. And then for the denominator, now we need to figure out what is the denominator. So for the denominator, we need to find out how many parts the whole was divided into in. Now since there are 4 friends, so what they did is they divided each apple into 4 equal parts. Hence the denominator is going to be 4. Now this is different than what you have observed earlier. You have earlier observed that whatever fractions we saw earlier, in that the numerator was less than the denominator. So I'll just write this D for denominator and N for numerator. So, but in this case, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So this is again a fraction, and it's a valid fraction. It simply says that we have 5 quarters of apples, and the whole is divided into 4 quarters each. Now this doesn't seem to be a very good way to represent it. So one of the friends got confused and said, "Oh, I don't really understand it. Could you just explain a better way?" So then another friend came up with solution that since there are 4 people, so we all of us take 1 apple each, and then whatever the 5th apple remains, we divide it into 4 equal parts. So here is the another way it is done. So you have 1 apple, this is 1 apple, and this is 1/4 of an apple, right? Because the 5th apple is divided into 4 parts. So this is 1 apple and this is 1/4 of an apple. This is 1 apple and this is 1/4 of an apple. 1 and 1/4. Now this combination can be represented as 1 apple, 1 whole apple, and quarter of an apple, right? 1 whole apple and quarter of an apple. Now this sounds to be much better, that I have 1 whole apple and there is a quarter of an apple. But now if this apple, right, is to be divided into 4 equal parts, then this 1 apple is nothing but actually 4 quarters, right? This becomes 4 quarters. It is like 4 parts taken out of 4, correct? And then you have 1 and you have 1/4 of an apple. So you can see that both the ways people end up with the same amount of apple to be eaten, right? So this is what an improper fraction is. Now let us try to revise what we have learned. So what are improper fractions? So in improper fraction, the numerator is greater than the denominator. And how can we represent improper fractions? So the one example showed us the number 5/4. You can have any such numbers. You can have like 10/4. You can have 16 or 15 by, let's say, 7. So in all the cases, the numerator is greater than the denominator. You can have as many examples as you like. And then so this is the one way in which we can represent improper fraction. Now mixed fraction is what we saw in the other solution that the friend proposed, right? So what essentially mixed fraction is, it is just another way of representing improper fractions, and it is usually represented as combination of whole and part. So for example, in the first solution which the first friend gave, they told that we have 5 quarters and each apple is divided into 4 parts. The other friend said that we have 1 whole apple and a quarter of an apple. So essentially this and this are same things. It is just that the representation is different. So here is the example. So this is 1 part and this is 1/4. So I can just represent this as 1 and 1/4. What it simply means is 1 apple and 1/4 of an apple. Similarly, this is another example here. So this is 1, and then what we have done is we have divided. If I take this quantity here, how can I represent this as a mixed fraction? So we have like, this is 1, this is 2, and this is half. So hence this is 2.5. So this is a mixed fraction. Now let us just try to understand whether we can convert the improper fractions into mixed fractions or the mixed fractions into improper fractions. So just I will reiterate again that both of these are one and the same thing. It is just that the representation is different. So how can I convert an improper fraction into a mixed fraction? Right? It's very simple. What we can do is we just divide the numerator by the denominator and get the quotient and the remainder. And then the mixed fraction will be represented as quotient, right? Which is then the remainder divided by divisor. So let's just take an example and that will make it more clearer. So we want to represent 11 by 3 into mixed fraction. So 3 is so the denominator is always going to be the number of parts into which the whole is divided, and 11 is the number of parts that we have. So we first divide the numerator by the denominator. So our numerator is 11 and we start our division with the numerator, which is 3. So 3 3s are 9, 3 times 3 is 9. So we can just write the quotient as 3 here, and then the remainder that we get is 2. We cannot divide it any further, right? So now if we want to represent this fraction here, so we have to write as quotient. So what is the quotient that we have? In this case the quotient is 3, right? And sorry, the quotient is 3. This is 3. Then we have the remainder. What is the remainder? The remainder is 2. And what is the divisor? The divisor is 3. 3 is actually dividing. So this is 3. So this is the representation of 11 by 3. Right? There is also another way to find out or to convert this improper fraction into a mixed fraction. So let's say that we can write, let's say this was method 1. And then method 2 is we just write this as 11 by 3. Now what we try to find out is we just find out the nearest multiple of 3. That is the nearest multiple of 3 that is very close to 11. Right? So it will be 3 times 3, which is like 9. So we have 9. And then what remains? What do we need to add to make it as 11? It is going to be 2. And then we can write it as 3. Then what we do is we just simplify this by writing 9 divided by 3 plus 2 divided by 3. And from this we come up with 9 by 3 is 3 and 2 by 3 is what we get. So this is our mixed fraction. So these are the two ways in which you can convert an improper fraction into a mixed fraction. Now how can we do the other way around? That is converting a mixed fraction into an improper fraction. So that is pretty much straightforward. What we do is whatever the whole part we have, we multiply it with the denominator, add this product to the numerator, and just take the denominator as the denominator. So here we have 2 3 by 4. We want to represent this as a mixed fraction. So as we see here, it is like what we need to do is, what is whole? The whole is 2 in this case. So 2 multiplied by the denominator. What is the denominator? Is 4. So 2 into 4. What do we need to add it to? To the numerator, that is 3. And then the denominator remains the same. So what we have is 2 4s are 8 plus 3 divided by 4, which is like 11 by 4. So this was an example in which we converted a mixed fraction into improper fraction. So I think this is incorrect here. This is convert this into an improper fraction. This has to be an improper fraction. We can take another example. For example, you have 3 4 by 5. How are you going to convert this? So it's pretty much straightforward. 3 multiplied by 5. This is a straight way. 3 multiplied by 5 denominator, add it with the numerator and keep the denominator as it is. So 15 plus 4 is 19 by 5. So this is another example of a